Hello, Runeterrans. We finally got it. Our first champion revealed from the upcoming Bandle City themed expansion, and it's Poppy. Yes, I know you can see that on the screen, but I'm very excited to talk about Poppy because she does something that Demacia sorely needed while also playing to Demacia's strengths. And I will explain what I mean by that, but first we have to know what Poppy does. So, Poppy is a 4-cost 4/3. She does, of course, have the Yordle tag. She belongs to Bandle City and Demacia as far as regions go. Her ability, if you will, her trigger, her identity, whatever you want to call it, is that on attack, she grants herself and all allies with equal or less power than her +1/+1. She levels up when she has attacked with allies 3 times. Now, before I cover what level 2 does, I do want to highlight that I did get confirmation from a Riot developer that she does need to attack with allies for this to count. And that matters because cards like Cataclysm exist. And so if she is attacking solo with no other additional allies, she will not get credit toward leveling up. That is very relevant. But there's a reason for that. They wanted her to be difficult to level up because her level 2 is a very powerful effect. It is a game closer in all likelihood because she changes to a 4/5 for 4, so she gets the standard +1/+1 to her base stats. But at this point, chances are she's much bigger because she's been growing as she attacks. And she reads, attack. Grant me and all allies with equal or less power than me +2/+2 and impact. And then she also gains the impact keyword herself naturally. Now, again, we have to remember that impact is something that stacks. So this means every time she attacks, your entire squad is getting impact, and it's going to keep getting additional instances of that. And that's what I meant when I said earlier it gives Demacia something it was sorely missing, and that's a way to close games. We don't really have great ways to deal direct damage to an enemy nexus unless we go to other regions. Within Demacia itself, we don't have access to Overwhelm. We don't have access to direct damage. There's no Mystic Shot. There's no Get Excited. We don't even really have evasion. We kind of pseudo get it through somebody like Cythria with Fearsome, but for the most part, we are relying on Demacian might. We want to make value trades. We want to have bigger units. We take over the board, and then we just get some units that go unblocked, and that's our game plan. But when our opponent has a steady supply of chump blockers, we can struggle to close out games, and that's where Poppy comes in. With impact now, whenever our units are blocked, we'll still get some damage in. With Poppy, when you level her up, we're giving impact to our entire board, and remember, impact stacks. So we're getting this every time we attack, and then it becomes 2 damage to the nexus, 3 damage to the nexus, and that's per unit attacking. So we really scale up the end game when we level up Poppy, which is why she is so difficult to level. And make no mistake about it, she's going to be difficult to level. As I said before, we have to attack with her and another unit. That means our opponent, through removal, for example, can make it hard for us to level up Poppy because she needs a buddy. We have to have a unit that we're okay to attack with Poppy because, yes, she's buffing them, but we don't always want to attack with everything. We have to make sacrifices if we're going to work on leveling her up. We also have to worry about more than just removal. A well-timed stun or recall before we get to declare attackers could slow down, could hinder our ability to level her up. And I think that you want to level her up, and so you want that progress. She's very, very powerful when you level her, but we could see her played in a couple of different ways. One is the Poppy-centric list where you go all in essentially and trying to level her up because she is so strong. She's a game ender in all likelihood when she levels up, but in order to do that, you have to solve the deck building dilemma because she wants a number of things. She wants to attack a lot, she wants buddies to attack with, and she wants to be kept alive because, yes, she makes herself bigger, but she doesn't have any other defensive keywords. There's no barrier, there's no spell shield, there's not even tough, and so you're going to have to fulfill all of those requirements if you really want to go Poppy-centric. The other likely use for her, and I think it's the one that we're going to see most often, is just as a reusable Bannerman effect. She's in Bandle City and she's in Demacia. These are 2 regions that really like the Bannerman effect just in general. Bandle City, we know, has some early elusive units, has some tempo units. You could go with the kind of like tempo prank game plan, and then she's buffing all of your smaller units that you played earlier. So that's, I think, one possibility. The fact that she's in Demacia, Demacia was already seeing play in elusive decks because of the rally effects. Well, Now you can slap in Poppy, and if you're swinging with 2 or 3 elusive units, you're also buffing them up as well. And if your opponent is then stopping to deal with the elusives, maybe Poppy slides through for an attack or 2 with her buddies, and then you level her up that way. So I think that that's more likely what we're going to see, where you focus on just using her level 1, and if you level her up, then so be it. But I would like to see a Poppy centric, like, go all in on trying to level her up list. I at least want to experiment with it, but I think she's great. She solves a lot of the issues that Demacia has had in the past, at least in my opinion, and so I'm really looking forward to playing her. Speaking of the weak points for Demacia, one of the things that they struggle with is the ability to directly remove units. We have access to strikes, there's single combat, concerted strike, a number of options. We even have Cataclysm, where we just start a fight with something, but we don't have many ways to just say, I don't like that unit. We've had to rely on, like, Detain, for example, in the past in Demacia. Well, now her champion spell, which is Keeper's Verdict, helps to fill that role a little bit. So this is her champion spell. There is a regular playable version we'll see on the next screen. Her version is a dual region version, but that's just because she's a dual region champion. The regular version, as you will see, is a single region, and it belongs to Bandle City. But with all of that out of the way, the spell itself is a 6-cost slow spell, and it simply says you place an enemy unit on top of the enemy deck. So you pick a unit and you say, go away. I love the flavor here. It's really you using your hammer to just send them flying. You send them packing. But I really like this card as well, because even though you look at it and you say, okay, well, it costs 6 and it's slow, for 1 more mana, I can go to Vengeance, and then I have a fast speed direct removal. But one of the things you have to remember here is that you're not just getting rid of the unit on the board, you're also denying a draw. And late in games, when your opponent might only have 2 or 3 cards in hand and they're relying on top decks to give them more options, you're denying that as well. You're saying, hey, you're just going to draw this unit again. I hope you didn't need something in particular, because you know what you're getting, and I know what you're getting because I just sent it to you. And so I really like this card, and I think that it's entirely possible beyond just the champion spell version, where you've already got Poppy on the board and you draw a second one. I think that you could see this finding a home in a couple of decks if they really want access to something. Viego, for example, has been very popular lately, and if Viego starts to get a lot more momentum and you're playing Demacia and you don't have access to more direct removal, this could be a great way to just slow down Viego. But that's it for Poppy. Now we're going to move on to the next graphic, and we're going to talk about some of the other cards that were revealed. As we see, Keeper's Verdict, like I said before, exactly the same as the other version, but this one is just Bandle City. We also got Yordle Ranger. This is a 6-cost Yordle. It's part of Bandle City and Demacia. What we get for that 6-cost is a 5/5 body with the Scout keyword. On attack, grant me and all allies with equal or less power than me +0/+1. So where this shines is in keeping your backline units alive, because they do not have to attack with the Ranger to get the bonus. So if you're trying to keep certain units outside of Withering Whale range or outside of Ravine or Avalanche range, this is a great way to do it. We do also see that Scout keyword, so we could consider running this in Scout dedicated decks. When we consider this as a Demacian card, though, we do have to compare it against the other 6-cost heavy hitters in the region, which are Cythria and a few others. And so I'm not sure we're letting this card take that place, take that role. Where we could see this is in Bandle City decks, where we don't have as powerful 6-drops, potentially. Or we could see this in the Tree Wind Con decks, just because it's a dual region card and we want access to as many regions as possible. So we're going to have to keep our eye out. I like the effect. I like that it's keeping your backline units potentially alive, but if 5/5 for 6 is not necessarily the greatest when you compare it to something like Moose, and so that's where we are on Yordle Ranger. Next up, we have Pompous Cavalier, which is a 3-cost Yordle. It's in Bandle City, it's in Demacia, and it's very simply a 1/1 with double attack. Now, if you're coming from the Elder Scrolls Legends, this probably looks familiar. We had a very similar unit in that game. However, this time around, we have the benefit of burst spells and fast spells. We can buff this during combat, which makes this a bit more interesting. It could become a lightning rod for removal if you're running it. We do still have to protect it, and we have to invest into it, though. And so we're paying 3 mana for a unit that we ultimately have to invest in further. We don't get immediate board impact from. So While I think this could be fun, and I think that this could show up in certain combo decks, I don't think this is going to become a mainstay in many lists. We could see this again in some sort of Bandle City, Bandle Tree, win con list because it is dual region. But outside of that, I just don't see this making a huge splash. Our next Yordle is Yordle Smith. This is a 2-cost 2/2 Yordle. It's only in Bandle City, and it says on attack, you give allies with equal or less power than me quick attack for the round. So it's not grant, it's only give for the round. And again, this is only in Bandle City, so we don't have the dual region benefit. We're not likely including this in the Bandle Tree decks. And we only get to grant quick attack to small attack units. So I'm not sure this makes a very big splash. Yes, it's got the Yordle tag, but we don't know what the payoff for that is. And so unless we're in some weird meta where literally everybody's playing elusives and you want your elusives to attack and not get chump blocked by their elusives, you want yours to survive, maybe you run it, but I'm just not envisioning that being the case. And so we're not very excited for this one. I mean, sure, the Yordle Smith is cute or whatever. Look at that blue face, it's adorable, but we're just not really thrilled about this card unless we're missing some other piece of the puzzle. And so far we haven't seen it. So the good news is we're not done. We have one more graphic. We'll move on over there now. And we're going to talk about Stress Defense. This card I like. This is a 3-cost burst spell from Bandle City. And you set a unit's stats to 1/6 this round. So the reason that I like this is because it just sets the stats. This is not a like +2 health directly, right? It's not like +0, +4. You just straight up make a 1/6. And it's any unit. So you can do this on your opponent's units. If they are trying to block one of your key units, you can make it only hit yours for 1, for example. You can use it to protect your own units as well. You could set your unit to a 1/6 so it survives removal, survives direct damage. There's a lot of different ways I think that you could use this card. It's very versatile. The fact that it's exactly 3 I think is relevant because you can use your spell mana to play this card. I really like this. I think that the versatility it has will end up finding a home in a deck somewhere. And yeah, that's about all I can say. It's just really good. It's capable of doing a bunch of things for you. We also have Heroic Charge. This is a 5-cost slow spell in Bandle City, and it says an ally strikes an enemy, and then if that enemy survives it, stun it. So we're naturally going to compare this to Concerted Strike. I think that that's just going to happen. We're going to make that comparison, and we're going to say, wow, Concerted Strike blows us out of the water. We get the same cost, we get a faster speed, and we get 2 units that get to strike something. Sign me up. But what we have to remember is this is a Bandle City card. We may have situations where we are not running Demacia, but we are running Bandle City and we care about units striking things. That would be the only time I could envision this card being like a positive or where we would include it. I can't think of those situations right now, but we're going to keep our eye out in case it does pop up because yeah, this is just not as exciting as the Demacian counterparts, but I do like that, you know, in the region pie, if you're not familiar with the term in Magic the Gathering, there's this thing called the color pie. So it's the region pie here for Runeterra. In the region pie, it is nice to see strikes popping up in places not Demacia, but it's very clear in all of those cases, whether it's here or with like Claws in Noxus, we're paying a premium when we're not in Demacia. Now, the last card revealed is one that I'm very excited about, even though it's just a 1-drop. This is Yordle Squire. It is a 1-cost 2/1 with the Yordle tag. It is only in Bandle City, but on play, you create either a tiny spear or a tiny shield in hand. Tiny Spear is a 1-cost focus spell that grants an ally +1/+0. It's very similar to a gem, not quite the same, but it's similar. Tiny Shield, on the other hand, grants an ally +0/+1. And so we get the benefit of being able to choose whichever one we want, whether we want to maybe keep something alive, whether we want to be more aggressive, but we also get a free card, right? Like this is a focus spell. And so if we care about spells, and again, we might see those kinds of decks where we're also playing pranks, for example, which are cheap spells, we could see this as a natural inclusion. I do like that it is a 2/1 where we get that kind of aggressive trade-off as well, whereas the 1 cost that creates a gem is a 1/2. And so just overall, really like what this card does for a 1-drop. It's really hard to ask for more from your 1-drops. You know, if they are a 2/1 and they create something in your hand, you're probably going to play it if it's available. We've seen that time and time again. And so I actually really like this card, but That's it for the reveals. If you made it this far, I appreciate you as always. I'm really excited to see our first champion. I want to know what you think of Poppy. And as always, until next time, may you walk on warm sands.